Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is the Our Turf Football Podcast. I'm not here by myself. I
No,
swear.
really, she's not.
That you can hear the Sonia on the other side.
I'm
She is
just
here.
about to say, we're live.
She's letting you guys know on Twitter that we are live. Hello, everyone. It is just 9 days to the draft. I can't even stand it. I'm so ready for this to be done because I feel like I know more about this year's draft than I've known about any draft. I've studied and studied and studied and learned, and I'm trying because you guys know that I am not a huge college football person. I love my Montana State Bobcats, but that's about all. But I'm trying, people. I'm really trying, and that is due in a huge part to the woman on the other side of the screen, Miss Sonia Greenfield, because she loves herself some college ball.
I do. It's a lot of fun. I don't know. I just think sometimes, the great Bo Schembechler once said that, once you get to the pros, you're playing for things. You're playing for a contract. You're playing for, stuff like that. But when you're in college, you are playing as a team. Like that is truly, you are playing as a team. You are one of the team and no man is greater than the team. Okay. Sorry. I'm not going to go off on the
I
team
love
speech. But it's true. It's true. Look up the Bo Schembechler, the team speech, and you'll see what I'm saying. But college is fun though, and also the traditions and just the rivalries. It's all just fun, and just it's just a bunch of kids just having a great time, and I love it.
It really is. I think that the interesting thing about college ball for me is that there's so many teams and so many players, and so yeah, you can watch like who's kind of moving up in the world and that sort of thing, but it's just a lot to keep going on while I have my complete focus on the NFL and my dearly beloved MLS. So it's just a lot for me. I let you
It is a lot.
Take care of that. Yeah, we hopefully will have another guest here in just a minute. Hopefully Michelle will join us. She almost forgot us. That's so Michelle if you know her. But interesting thing. Oh yeah, what did I say? Look, it's our other guest. Hello, Michelle. I just told everybody out there that you were going to be late because you forgot about us.
I literally just walked in the door. I totally forgot. I literally totally forgot.
That is how important we are to her, people, in case you were curious.
No, you are the most important. No.
Oh, gosh.
Awesome. Everyone, this is Michelle Jinks. She is one of our dearest and closest and most beloved friends, and she comes on the show with us every once in a while to help us hold it down and keep our heads on straight. I like it when you're on with Lisa, because you'll be like, Lisa. That makes me real happy. I'm not going to lie. Really, really happy.
She's talking. I can't believe she's not here to talk quarterbacks.
I know.
Dude, right?
Yeah, she has to work. And so she couldn't get out of it. She's so mad. She did send me, though, her top 5. And so I did promise that I would add that in for sure. But so interestingly enough, I was telling Sonia right before the show started that I was feeling a little old today. That today I read a couple things that hit me hard. First of all, Kurt Warner's kid is in this draft. Wide receiver out of K-State. I'm like, Cade Warner. I'm like, seriously? His kid is not only old enough to be in college, but he's engaged and in the draft. I couldn't.
He's engaged too?
Yeah, because I looked up his profile. I'm like, that's not really who that is it? Sure as heck is. I'm telling you. But then I read a tweet that went out that said Marvin Harrison's kid and Antonio Gates' son, both juniors, are going to play each other in college ball.
Where does Antonio Gates' kid go?
I don't even know. I was too blinded by the fact.
We're about to find out.
Oh my God.
Wow.
I had a hard time with that. Like, and then Sonia said to me the perfect thing. She goes, didn't Antonio Gates just retire like last week?
He did. Literally did.
I am telling you, he did. It was too much. It was too much for me. So I'm glad we're going to focus on these young kids again, because on these college kids, because that was a little bit too much for me. That was kind of overboard. But before we get going, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about this sale of the Washington Commanders. So the bid has been put in. I think it's between $6 and $7 billion. And this is the question I have. If the Commanders are worth $6 billion, let's just flatten that out. What the hell are the Dallas Cowboys worth? They're the most popular team in the world. I know. Girl, seriously, that's why I want to talk about it.
No.
There's no one can afford us.
Right. Which is why no one bothers
I'm
with
about
Jerry.
to look that one
You
up
do you,
too.
Jerry.
I'm about to look that one up.
Think about that. That's a legitimate question. If the Washington Commanders are worth $6 billion and the Cowboys are just leading everything outside of Super Bowl, what can Jerry sell the team for?
I bet it would be easily 8 to 9. Like I can't, but just the marketing rights alone, right? So
Definitely would be 10. It wouldn't be under 10.
I think well, we're talking billions with a B. So that does change it a little bit, but it's interesting to me.
But $6 billion for Washington.
For Washington.
6. That's almost 10.
Oh my God. I can't even wrap my brain around it. And
that Washington historically, I know the Commanders, but historically they are, they are a historical franchise. They have the Hogs, you can go back and in history, Lord knows this hurt me to say this, but they are one of the most historical franchises outside of Dallas, Green Bay, Steelers.
Right.
And
right.
then,
Giants,
because you can go back and look at the traditions, the Super Bowls and the Hogs and the, just the Riggins and all of the things that they've done. They had the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl. I mean, there's history there for the Washington Commanders. So, and they're in DC, they're in the capital. So, it's a good place to be. It's not a city, but it's our capital. So
right.
You got to look at it like that instead of what they've done in the past and looking at the owner. So
yeah, it's all true. I think that we are all pleased that Snyder will be out of the league. I think for sure. I also think that maybe we are kind of seeing. And this is the point that was brought to me. And Sonia, I want to question you. Send you the question. So $6 billion. And they are bitching and moaning about $200 million to a quarterback. Like I'm like, really? You just made us feel even less sorry for the owners, right?
Right. Completely.
Yeah.
I mean, and I get it. Once you get to that point where money is like, it's just an odd concept to you, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Why are you going to squabble over just 200 million, which is like literally pocket change for you?
Pocket change.
And, you don't get to be a billionaire by, you get it by making smart investments and doing all the things that you should do. And so I kind of a little bit understand, from the investment standpoint, you want to make sure it's a good investment. That's literally all you've done. But at the same time, when you're worth billions, 200 million, that's literally pocket change.
And I think that that's going to be the interesting part, right? I think that we're going to see the players be like, I'm sorry, Mr. $6 billion man, you just paid this much for this franchise. Now you're going to pay me to run it. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be there. It'll be an interesting conversation, and it'll be interesting to see what the next CBA has to say about it too. Cause I think that there'll be some movement there and maybe some profit sharing ideas and things like that. Obviously the NFL has grown exponentially truly over the last 10 years. It has become something completely different than what it was. It is now this giant monster that can't be fought with. So I think that that's interesting to see now. Okay, so these superstar players, what are you going to do for them? How are you going to make them? They're the ones making your money for you. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. So congratulations, NFL. Snyder is out. So that is a good thing for sure. All right. I still feel old. I can't get over Antonio Gates Jr. I will eventually get over it.
He goes to Michigan State.
How did you not know that?
Exactly. I'm like, wait.
You're supposed to know that, Sonia.
Right. He's like Big Ten. Like these are both Big Ten kids. So I don't even
Where's Marvin Harrison Jr. go?
He's at the school down south, TSIO, Ohio State.
Oh.
The Ohio State.
Never heard of it. Never heard of it. Kate's not here. We've never heard of it. All right. So let's get into these quarterbacks a little bit. We keep hearing, to be quite honest with you, about the same four. CJ Stroud, We have Will Levis. We have Bryce Young? Bryce Young. Sorry, I just blanked on his name for a minute. And then Anthony Richardson. We keep hearing about the same 4 quarterbacks, but now we're hearing over the last few days some movement within where we think they're going to go. For about 2 weeks, it was, we're going to have 4 quarterbacks go in the top 5. We're going to have this, we're going to have that. And so now there seems to be some change in movement. I can't decide if it's good sports, playmanship. Like if these teams are leaking out there, oh no, the Houston Texans aren't going to take a quarterback. Bullshit. They're totally going to take a quarterback. Like, don't even tell me you're not going to, oh no, the Arizona doesn't need any positions. They're going to take one guy. No, they're not. They've got to challenge and trade out. I mean, they need as many picks as they can get. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I want to look at these quarterbacks a little bit. I want to get your guys' rankings. We have Lisa's rankings because she couldn't be here. So I want to chat with them and see what you guys think of them. You guys know I'm not a quarterback gal. They're just not my favorite. Although there's been some interesting developments and I've read a lot about these guys. But eventually I also want to talk about some maybe second day, maybe even third day quarterbacks who could make as much of an impact. So we're going to talk about some dark horses in all of this. So let's start with the presumed overall first pick, Bryce Young. Okay. So Bryce Young obviously has a lot of clout behind him for 2 reasons. Number one, he goes to Alabama, right? He's an Alabama boy. We know how that goes. He won the Heisman Trophy in 2021. He, has a list of accolades that go on forever. I will tell you, I have one misgiving about this boy. 2. He's 5'10", even though it says 5'11", he's really not 5'11", he's 5'10", and like 185 pounds. To me, that does not scream college quarterback, or I'm sorry, NFL quarterback. So, Michelle, what are your thoughts on Bryce Young? Do you think he will end up going first overall, or do you think that that's just kind of being put out there?
I think the Panthers have the first pick, correct? Frank Reich. And I would presume, look at Frank Reich, it's pretty good evaluator of quarterbacks. But the Panthers desperately need a quarterback. And I think that I actually like Bryce. I hate to say that because he plays for Alabama, but I actually do like him. I think he's very smart. He makes great decisions. He doesn't seem to get rattled. He's played well in games where you didn't think he was going to play well. He may start slow, but that guy never gives up. He's small, but I think that in today's NFL, we're seeing small quarterbacks be successful. Back in the day, probably his height would have been a defector, but nowadays you have some quarterbacks. He can move with the ball. He's not necessarily a runner. I mean, he runs, but I think he's he would be a good pick for Carolina because they want a quarterback. This city they want some movement there. So just because of the team, I think that the quarterback he'll probably go first because of who's picking first and what their needs are. And they haven't had much success. They've tried just about everybody. Over there. So now, they have some other pieces. Their defense is pretty good. They got a new coach, and now they need a quarterback. And they need someone that they can groom because they're not going to be good instantly anyway. So they have some way to go. And what better person than Frank Reich to groom a young Bryce Young?
Now, Sonia, I've heard some people say about CJ Stroud, who is 6'3", 215, so a little more prototypical, right, in his height and weight. Again, a same million type of accolades. He needs just a smidge of work, but seems to be very NFL ready to, for the most part. And I heard people say this was a few weeks ago that he was more of a Frank Reich type of quarterback. But now that seems to have all switched. I can't figure out. If you're looking at these two, I get Bryce Young he's very athletic. He likes to run around. I mean, he does all the things that smaller quarterbacks need to do, and he does them well. He probably has a better throw. than CJ Stroud. But CJ Stroud just seems like a really solid, safe choice. And that's who everyone's been talking about all year long as being the first pick in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts on CJ?
CJ is a very good quarterback. He has led Ohio State to do some pretty great things. Obviously, they kind of didn't do great in the playoffs, but neither did my team. But that's okay. But I think that overall, he has been a very good leader for the team and somebody who has been able to make some great plays and good decisions. And he doesn't make that many mistakes.
Right. He's so solid, right?
Exactly, exactly. He's very solid. The only thing that kind of does give me a slight bit of pause, outside of Justin Fields, Ohio State quarterbacks don't really do that great in the league. No. And so that's the only.
We're gonna hold his school against him. I agree. I get it. Yeah.
I mean, it's just the record. They really don't. They really don't. And so that would probably be my biggest knock, and probably the biggest concern about him coming out is that just outside of Justin Fields, the Ohio State quarterbacks just really haven't made that much noise in the league. Could he be different? Yeah, he could be. But yeah.
Even Justin Fields, the jury's still a little out on, correct?
Exactly,
I mean, we see these moments from him, and I think he's a good kid. I think he's just had a crappy team lately, but I do think that even that has been out. And that's really the only knock I hear on him is that he's, solid and he can throw and he looks NFL ready, but he's from Ohio State. And so it'll be interesting to see if that, holds him back at all. My question to both of you, how, with any logic, could the Houston Texans pass on a quarterback of either of their caliber? Now, we're going to talk about Anthony Richardson here in just a minute because I do want to talk about him too. He is definitely a wild card in all of this. Mm-hmm. But there's been a lot of talk lately that the Texans all of a sudden, I was like, oh, the Texans are going to take Will Anderson. What? No, they're not. They're going to take a quarterback. It drives me crazy. I think that's a total smokescreen. Michelle, it is illogical to me for Houston to take anyone but a quarterback. Is there any reason you think that they shouldn't? No, right? Like,
wait, who's their quarterback now? They have what's the guy name?
Is it like,
right? That's the point. So
I mean, it was Davis Mills. That's who it is.
Davis Mills. So yeah,
fine.
And Davis was okay. He played. I mean, it's kind of hard to judge Houston because they have so many things that they need. I mean, they really do have so many things that they need. And I think people want them to take a quarterback because they lost Deshaun Watson and they haven't been able to replace him. And so that's pretty much how people are looking at it. But if they're okay, if they start with a new quarterback, that person may not be ready. So Davis Mills still might be playing. And if you got that high of a pick, then you need to pick somebody who can come in and make an immediate impact. And it could be the quarterback or the defensive girl. So I would go in a different direction.
I am too.
I would go, that's where I would start. Because that's where, offensive, I mean, you have to build that. But you don't have a franchise quarterback, and that's what everybody's looking at. And now you have an opportunity with so many quarterbacks coming out in this draft. You got the number 2 pick. You're going to take a quarterback. And that's probably
here's the one. Yeah. So here's what I'm thinking, Sonia. Their defense was not bad last year. Like they could use some help, but it was not bad. Their line was a little questionable, but they have lots of picks in the draft. So here's my thing. They already have a starter in a running back in Dameon Pierce, right? Like they have that, which is the best friend of a rookie quarterback is a good run game. Mm-hmm. And they already have that. So it's interesting to me when people are like, well, the Texans are in love with Bryce Young. And if he's not there, they're going to move on to something else. Why? If you're already going to take it, we don't know if any of these guys will be good. It just doesn't make sense to me. So they better take a quarterback. Yeah. It has nothing to do with that. I want some of these guys left for Seattle at 5, but I'm just saying,
you have 5 legitimate guys that
Yeah.
that can probably be the franchise of your team, and
Or
you have the
they'll
number
suck.
2 pick. You're gonna use that pick on the
Yes,
quarterback.
I think so too.
And that's what you have to do, because you're going to look ahead and see, well, who's coming out next year. This is our opportunity.
This is
Let's
it.
get one of these guys.
Right.
Yeah,
Because hopefully you won't
exactly.
have the second pick next year. Hopefully you'll be better than that. So the other guy that everyone is talking about, obviously, is Anthony Richardson, 6'4", 235 pounds, out of Florida. Here is my little story about Anthony Richardson. The beginning of last season, I was doing a podcast for SB Nation before they laid all of us podcasters off. And I had our friend Emery Hunt on. And I said to him at the beginning of the season, I said, Emery, Seattle is going to have Geno this year. And this is before Geno was good. Guys, this is like the second week of the year. We didn't know what was going to happen. I said, so who should the Seattle fans start watching this season for whoever's going to be our quarterback next year, right? First of all, he schooled me and said, don't you dare give up on Geno. I think that he's going to be very good. Totally turned out to be right. The second thing he said was, it's the name that no one's going to talk about until the combine, and that's Anthony Richardson out of Florida. Dead set, you can go look at it. And I'm telling you, ever since then, I believe every word that comes out of Emery's mouth. And so he started talking about him. He said that he doesn't have a lot of starts, but he's such a good kid, and he's so athletic and so explosive. And so in Emery's draft guide this year, he has Anthony Richardson as his number 1 quarterback overall. Bryce Young as 2, CJ Stroud as 3. And he has not quite as many accolades, obviously not as many starts, but he's like, this kid is fantastic. An A+ athlete, a top tier +1 in quarterback run game, has power and speed. Like, he cannot talk enough about how much he likes this kid. So the only knock that seems to be on him is A, he can be a little inconsistent, and B, he just doesn't have enough starts in the NFL, right? Mm-hmm. If it were come down to you, Sonia, I'm going to give this one to you. Okay. When you're looking at CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson, which one do you think Houston should take?
I'm going to say Anthony Richardson. And why? Okay. More so because I think that he's going to kind of mesh a little bit more with the team. The team has a lot to prove, I think, with what, just like how much turmoil and change that they've had these past couple of years. And so I think that they want to get started on the right foot along with Anthony Richardson, because he feels though he's been doubted. And then, he kind of turned it on at the combine. And so I think that mentality, and with Houston having a new coach and all that, I think that will kind of gel and will be able to kind of bring him up more. And I think that he will probably do the better job at Houston than CJ. But that's just me.
Michelle, you agree with her?
Here's the thing. and Anthony may be the better quarterback, but it's just that little thing that we haven't seen enough of him for me to pick him at number 2. That's the only thing. I haven't seen enough. And I know they go to the combine. They're gonna evaluate them. They have people to evaluate. They can see his potential, but they still haven't seen enough of it. Right. And is it enough for them to give him the reins to the team? I don't know. And so the safe choice would be, CJ. That's a safer choice for a team in strict. Now, if it wasn't Houston and it was someone else, who probably had had somebody who they wasn't quite sure about. Then they may go ahead and take that, because they may that person may be able to sit and wait and whatever. But I don't know if Houston, not having seen that much of him, if they'll take that chance. I just agree. Don't know. But
I agree. So you take the safe choice. The kid who is NFL ready, he might not have as high of a ceiling, but his floor isn't super low. You know what I mean? Like they know, they're not sure with Anthony Richardson. There's a bigger gap there where I think you have a little more security with CJ Stroud.
Well, I used to always say don't trust USC quarterbacks, and now I feel that way about Ohio State. So
there you go.
That is true. You couldn't trust USC quarterbacks either.
Right. I know. Darn him anyway. All right. So the other one that everyone is talking about is a little bit of a mystery to me. So Will Levis, which I have to scroll a while in Emery's draft guide to get to Levis. He is the 18th ranked quarterback in Emory Hunt's guide. And so when I looked at it, I was like, what? Everyone was talking about him. He's supposed to be good, out of Kentucky, 6'3", 230. And the funny thing about it, I've seen him compared to Daniel Jones. This kid is just like Daniel Jones. That is not a quarterback that I want to pick up high. But everybody seems to keep bringing him up and bringing him up. I'm at a mystery why he is so high. And I will tell you, I literally watched highlights from one game. So, I mean, I'm grossly undereducated on this for sure. But he seems to be a name that pops up quite a bit. But both he and Richardson are starting to slip a little bit in some of the mock drafts, and they're going down. And it's like, oh, Atlanta might be able to get him at this number. They might be able to do this, that, and the other. So we'll see what will happen. The other name that comes up quite a lot and in very varied circles is Mr. Hendon Hooker. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about him, he is the number 6 ranked quarterback in Emory's guide. And you guys too can own this guide. Just go to Emory Hunt's website. It's so good. You have no idea. There's 1,000 kids. There's 1,000 kids in this guide, and he just breaks it down so beautifully for you. But he has him ranked at number 6. He said his biggest knock is that he'll be a 25-year-old rookie. Now, this kid is older, and he's had some injuries coming off an ACL.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got some injury history there. Michelle, is his age really something to be that concerned about?
Just reminds me of Chris Winkie. How old was he when he got into
the
NFL?
That's a name.
I mean, in the NFL, 25 is that's old. That's kind of, that's when your career is just about over. Think about by the time these kids graduate, they're 20, 21, 22, somewhere like. So that's the average career is what, 2 to 3 years or 3 years or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he's coming out at 25, but it also gives him a maturity level. I actually like him. I actually had him as my third quarterback. So
yeah.
I do like him more than I like Will. I've seen, you guys know that I'm college football every Saturday. So
I know you are. That's why you're here today, right?
Exactly.
I've seen a lot of him, and I actually like Hendon. I always call him Herndon. I want to put an R in his name, but
Right?
I really do. I like him, and I 25-year-old rookie may be a good thing. I mean.
Mm-hmm.
He's had some, like you said, he's had some injuries, but, for a maturity level and someone who's supposed to be the leader of the team, that he may be able to come in and have some type of, a better leader for his
Mm-hmm.
team and be able to handle some things differently than being a 21-year-old rookie
Right.
or something.
Young kid who has some.
A young kid, right?
Stupid.
So
yeah.
you almost can see him as a veteran in his age, even though he hasn't played a lot. So
Right. So obviously he was at the Combine, Reese's Senior Bowl, SEC Offensive Player of the Year, first team All SEC. I mean, his stats are fantastic. The only knocks that Emory gave him was his age, and so that they know that teams will be worried about that. And then when he misses, he has a tendency to be high at the target. Well, if you're going to miss, go high, right? Like that's you don't want it to. You let it sail out of bounds, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I listen to SiriusXM NFL radio every day on the way to work and on the way home, and their tune on this kid has completely changed. Like a month ago, they weren't super high on him. They weren't sure if he was going to heal well. And then he has come through and they're like, yep, he'll be ready for the season. Yep, he'll feel better, but he'll be better. But they're like, he is the perfect candidate for a team that needs a quarterback to sit for a year. And even though then that turns him into a 26-year-old rookie, it'll give him time to completely heal and learn those couple of little things. So a lot of people then were talking, well, maybe in Seattle or maybe San Francisco needs to grab him in case Purdy and Trey Lance don't work out, or Tampa Bay or Atlanta, and they can sit behind who they have for right now. I mean, there's lots of opportunity for this guy to just sit and wait. Hell, even the Jets, once they manage to get Aaron Rodgers, God knows if he's going to play year to year.
Right.
Stick Hendon Hooker behind him, because they're going to get rid of Zach Wilson. We know that. And so there's lots of opportunity for this guy. And I think that is a really interesting aspect to this part of the draft for him. I think, and they said this, and these are guys, I mean, this is moving the chains. These are the guys that know, right? And they were like, he could end up being the best quarterback in this draft long-term. Just because of how he plays. It's very, very interesting. Who else you got on that list? So you had, who'd you have? Young first and then Stroud? Yeah. And then Hooker. Who'd
And
you have
then
after
Hooker.
that?
I guess
Like
I don't
Will?
know.
I don't know.
Anderson, Florida, the guy we already talked about
Richardson?
him.
Yep,
Mhm.
for
Yep,
sure. Mhm.
yep, we talked about Richardson already. So,
Right. What
um,
about you, Sonia? Who do you have?
Pretty much those guys
Okay.
have been and yeah, I mean, they're all kind of interchangeable. I think I would put on my list, it was Young, Stroud, Richardson, Herndon.
Mhm.
And so in that order. So I mean, but I could honestly, they're all interchangeable because in the end, they're all are very well or good players. So I
Right.
think they could go either way.
So Lisa sent us her list, and I said send 5 to 7. She sent 5. She said CJ Stroud is number 1 for her. Of course he is, because he sits in the pocket and throws the ball. That's what she loves. Bryce Young, Will Levis. Then she has Max Duggan out of TCU.
Yeah.
And then she has Hendon Hooker.
Mhm.
So let's talk about Max Duggan for just a minute. 6'1", 211 pounds out of TCU. He
Mhm.
is ranked 46th for Emory. So Emory was not as
Mhm.
big of a fan as Lisa, but still has some really good aspects to him. Still had a pretty good scouting grade of 69, which is Emory's scouting grade. He shows good intangibles, the type that could rise to the occasion in the situation. He's tough. He's a tough runner, and he's kind of rugged. Effective chain mover, will find a way to make keep his offense on schedule. Those are all good things to have, but at the same time, we're looking at him probably going a little later. She said after that, after the first 3, it drops off significantly. Here's what's interesting to me. The conversation I had then with a couple of people online and talking is the quarterbacks that are going to go the 4th through 7th round and what an impact those guys could make. And I found that really interesting. So I started to do a little looking. Okay.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what does Emory have to say about some of these guys? So let me get back up to the top here. I got to scroll for a minute. So he has Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. 4th, he has Todd Centillo from James Madison University. Now, let me tell you about James Madison. They kicked the ever-loving crap out of my Montana State Bobcats. And so I had to watch this kid play.
Very
He's
good
actually
program.
really
Very
good.
good program.
Yes, smaller school for sure. But that's what I love about Emory stuff is that he doesn't care what school you go to. He wants
Right.
to watch you play. And he watched 3 games with him. He has him ranked as his number 4 quarterback, but knows that he won't go until the later rounds, which I think is interesting. Then you have Jaron Hall out of BYU, 6 foot, 211 pounds, number 5 in quarterbacks. He does, however, have an extensive injury history, but these kids are ranked high. Adrian Martinez out of K-State, 6'2", 225. Really good player. He's got a good run game, which he says. And then he's got this, I love this. Lindsey Scott Jr., 5'10", 220 pounds from Incarnate World. He said that this kid will go, he's like the perfect late round pickups. So there's so many of these kids that we haven't heard about. Matthew McKay is another one out of Elon Phoenix. Then you have Dorian Thompson Robinson out of UCLA, which a lot of people are talking about.
Mhm. A lot
And
of people
so what's interesting to me is that some of these teams, like let's say the Lions, who have Jared Goff still as their quarterback, as Dallas, who maybe they have Dak Prescott, but they might just need some, a good backup, a young backup that they will be able to pick up rounds 4 to 7 and probably more 5 to 7. That could be have some pretty significant impact if needed, because these players are good. So here's my thought, because both of you guys have your quarterback set right now. Where do you want your team to maybe draft another quarterback? Are you looking now, Sonia? Your situation's a little different because obviously Dak has his contract. You have Jared Goff, maybe another year or 2, although he looked great last year. I was very impressed with how Jared looked last year. Where are you at with maybe spending a little, I hate to say money, but draft money on getting a quarterback?
I would say, kind of they're round on, I would
Yeah.
be okay. Third and fourth round, I for sure would be totally okay with that. While Jared did have a fantastic season last year, hopefully he'll be able to keep it up. But I don't expect him to be the quarterback that's going to take the Lions all the way. I expect them to eventually grab somebody who they can have sit behind Jared and then just kind of watch him, or eventually take that spot. But that's what I see. Definitely like a third or fourth round quarterback. I would not be mad at that.
Right. I'm kind of in the same spot with Seattle. Everyone's like, oh, they should take a quarterback at 5. Shut up. No, they shouldn't. So sorry. I'm not telling other fans to shut up. I promise. So here's the thing. But I would be third round, fourth round. If you really like one of these guys that's kind of has a lot of talent, but isn't the name that everyone's going after, why not? Now, Michelle, you're in a little different spot in Dallas because you do have Dak. And I have no idea who your backup is. Is it
Cooper Rush?
It's still Cooper. It's still Cooper.
Cooper Duper came in and won games for us last year.
Cooper Duper. I love that. Well, Mr. Dakota, though, hopefully will be healthy this whole entire year. So you think that Dallas should just pass on a quarterback completely, or you want them to bring one in?
I mean, Dallas, I think I'm always, maybe in like the 6th or 7th round.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's where we would pick up a quarterback, and Dallas is good for picking up the mid-majors. So the James Madison guy would be perfect for us. Romo was a mid-major. We pick up mid-majors.
Yeah.
And my good friend Emery, as you call him.
Yeah.
That's where Emery started doing, covering those schools.
Yes, he
so
did.
He knows a whole lot about those teams. And when he says something, like you say, he gives you the best. But, I can see the Cowboys picking someone like that in the later rounds. We're going to get a quarterback one of these rounds in this draft. So either it's going to be maybe the 7th, maybe one of those rounds. I think we'll pick up a quarterback. We have to, because we have to see. We should anyway bring someone in. We don't know. Cooper Rush may get a job somewhere because he played so well in Dakota's absence.
Right. Right.
If he leaves, who are we going to have? So, I think that would be a good pick, and might as well start, because then they can sit and learn behind the great Dakota.
The great Dakota. So yeah, Lisa always says I pick you in the first round, you're playing that year. Right. So it really seems to be with some of these quarterbacks that could be picked later, it's the perfect opportunity for them to sit and learn. I completely agree. All right. So we at Our Turf aren't doing a show next Tuesday because you're going to get real sick of us by the end of the draft, because we are all gathering together in Kansas City. Lord help this city. And so we are going to be doing a live show sometime during the draft, with all 4 of us in the same room. 4 of us in the same room. Oh my God, my poor house. But here's I want to know from you. So since we are not doing a show next Tuesday, who, Sonia, do you want your Lions to take in the first round?
Ooh, Greg and I had this discussion last week. Yeah. Honestly, would I be thrilled with Will Anderson? Sure would be.
Yeah, he's not getting past Seattle.
I know. Oh goodness, that would be my best. But yeah, I would like him. We're gonna take him.
You keep dreaming, pumpkin. That's adorable.
Isn't it cute? That's who I want them to take.
And you guys just have 1 pick in the first round. Is that right?
2.
You guys don't. You have 2?
Yeah, we have 2.
Oh.
See, so yeah.
Isn't that nice? 2 picks in the round is really nice. Let me tell you that. Thank you very much, Mr. Russell Wilson. So, okay. So, what about you, Michelle?
Russell Wilson.
Oh.
I don't know who we're going to pick.
Let's ride, baby.
Listen, don't get me started. But with our first pick, the number 26 pick in the first round, the Dallas Cowboys will select and should select someone on the offensive line, perhaps.
Yeah.
We have to pick someone on the offensive line. And if they don't, then we need to pick someone on the defensive line.
Yeah. You need the trenches.
We got to have the trenches. And I think that's still our problem. I mean, I think we did well last year. We picked the left tackle. How many years have I been telling you guys that it was time for them to pick someone, because Tyron Smith was on his last legs when he hurt his back. He finally did, and he played well. He played well for us. The problem is that we had some other injury. Tyron came back. We had to move him over. So we still have to fill that position. We still need either a tackle. I mean, we got to tackle because Tyler Smith can play tackle. The problem is if Tyron's there, they're going to let Tyron play. So I think that's where we start. That's where we have to start up front on either side of the ball.
We did get a question in chat, you guys, from Peter. He's promises no Seahawks questions. You ask me Seahawks question all you want to, Peter. But which quarterback will be overdrafted? Example, Hendon at number 8 or Levis at number 2. That's a really good question.
That's a very good question. So, like, who's going to be the first reach?
Overdrafted quarterback.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sonia?
I'm going to say Levis. And I think, I think he's going to be overdrafted, unfortunately.
I know. I think we all kind of agree on that. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And maybe Hooker. I mean, somewhat, but honest to God, with his skill set, if a team really likes him and is willing to sit him for a year, then why not take him and make sure no one else grabs him? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
26, he's almost 30.
He jumped. 6 billion's almost 10.
Right.
26 is almost 30.
See what I'm saying? Once you get over 5, you're over half.
Right? Just round it up.
It's true. It's true. It's true. Thank you, Peter, for that question. I loved it.
That was a good question.
So for Seattle has 2 picks. They have pick at number 5 and pick at number 20. I hope for number 5, they either get Will Anderson. I'm going to steal him right out from underneath of Sonia, or Jalen Carter. I'm all in on this. And I know that people have issues with him. I do not. I want that big old brute in there so bad. So I think that would be great. You have to go.
Good player.
Yeah. Defensive player. And at number 20, it's really going to be interesting to just see how the rest of the draft falls, because once there starts to be a run on a certain position, they go, right? Like they'll just take them. And so if the tight ends start to roll, they'll be okay. I'd be okay if they took a tight end. It's a good tight end class. If the offensive linemen start to fall,
let's go.
You just don't know how it's going to go. But if I had a preference, then I would prefer an offensive lineman. I really like Osiris Torrance. I really do. And so I think that would be good. Or one of the centers, either John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. I know that's not his name, but that's what I call him. And or is it Whippler out of Wisconsin? So yeah, one of those centers would be good. Or defensive lineman. If you didn't get your edge rusher and you need a linebacker, grab a linebacker. And so the other name that's moved up the charts quite a bit is actually someone you mentioned, Sonia, in Mazzie Smith. He all of a sudden is like wiggling his way right up that ladder. So I think that would be interesting too. So that's kind of where I'm at for Seattle. So it's going to be fun. I mean, we have just a little bit of time left, and we'll get to actually see it and see where these players land. But I will tell you this, and this is to all the fans out there. There's a lot of ways for this draft to go very right for your team. So don't overreact. And I know that's really hard for fans, but give it a minute, let it sit in, try and figure out where the player that they pick lands for your team and how they can help them. And that's makes them all fun. And do not at the player on Twitter. Don't do it. Just stop unless it's a welcome or I'm so glad we have you.
Right.
Don't do it. Right.
Right.
Don't do it.
That's the only thing you can say. Welcome to whatever
you should say
city.
is welcome to the team.
So excited. Be nice.
Welcome to the nation.
That's right.
That's all.
That's right. All right, everyone. Well, that is our show for this week. So once again, we will not have a podcast next Tuesday. We will be live with you during the draft, and I hope you guys are ready.
It's going to be so much fun.
It's going to be a little bit. So hopefully we will see you guys. We'll let everybody know. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you get notified when we go live, because it will be just randomly throughout the 3 days of the draft. And make sure that you follow us on Twitter so that you can get all of that information too. All right. Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great night. Thank you, ladies.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.